Jelly Roll, a former drug dealer turned chart-topping country music phenomenon, has sold millions of records and won multiple awards at age 41. But this wasn't handed to him. This was tragic. This was heartbreaking. Jason Deford spent his 20s behind bars. Not once, not twice, but over and over, cycling through the Tennessee prison system like it was home. He sold drugs on the streets of Nashville. He was arrested more times than he can count. He buried friends who never made it out. He watched his daughter grow up through prison glass, her tiny hand pressed against the barrier while he sat in orange jumpsuits, promising her a father he didn't know how to become. At 30, he was a convicted felon with no future, no money, and no hope. At 41, he's performed at the Grand Ole Opry, won CMT Music Awards, and his album Wits at Chapel debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 in 2023. Shocking, the transformation from inmate to inspiration. But behind the redemption story and the sold-out arenas lies a story not glamorous, but brutal, a story of addiction, incarceration, loss, guilt, and the devastating cost of changing your life when everyone you love is still trapped in the one you left behind. If Jelly Roll has ever made you believe that redemption is possible, hit like as tribute to his refusal to let his past define his future. This is the story of a man who was supposed to die in prison or on the streets, and who chose to live instead, no matter how painful the climb. December 4, 1984, Nashville, Tennessee, specifically Antioch, the rough side of Music City that tourists never see. The birth of Jason Bradley Deford was marked not by celebration, but by struggle. His mother worked multiple jobs. His father was largely absent. The neighborhood was saturated with poverty, drugs, and violence. Antioch in the 1980s and 1990s wasn't the Nashville of honky-tonks and country stars. It was the Nashville of corner dealers and broken families. The beginning was not glamorous, but desperate. Jason, who would later take the name Jelly Roll from his larger build and street reputation, grew up watching addiction destroy the people around him. His mother struggled. His friends' parents struggled. Everyone was struggling. By age 14, he was already using drugs, marijuana, pills, whatever was available. By 16, he was selling them. Not because he wanted to, not because it was glamorous, but because in Antioch, it was survival. It was a way to eat, a way to help his mother with bills, a way to feel like he mattered. "I never wanted to be a drug dealer," he said in a 2020 interview. But when you grow up poor and you see an opportunity to make money, you take it. You don't think about consequences when you're hungry. At 16, Jelly Roll was arrested for the first time, possession, intent to sell, juvenile detention, then release, then back to the streets because there was nowhere else to go. The cycle had begun. 2000 for Jelly Roll, 19, was arrested again. This time the charges were serious: drug dealing, aggravated robbery, Davidson County Jail, then Tennessee State Prison. He was sentenced to multiple years behind bars. What few people know is that prison became his education. Not because the system rehabilitated him, it didn't, but because in a cell with nothing but time, he started writing rap lyrics, poetry, songs about the streets, about loss, about the friends he'd watched die from overdoses and gunshots. He had no recording equipment, no connections, no money, just words scrawled on commissary paper while other inmates slept. When he was released in 2008, Jelly Roll, 23, had a daughter named Bailey Ann. She was born while he was incarcerated. He'd missed her first steps, her first words, her first birthday. The guilt was devastating. He promised her, promised himself, that he'd change. But addiction doesn't care about promises. 2010. Jelly Roll, 25, started recording music in cheap studios around Nashville. Underground rap, street anthems, songs about the life he knew, drugs, prison, pain. He released mixtapes independently, year-round with Haystack, therapeutic music series, songs that got thousands of plays on YouTube, but generated almost no money. He performed in dive bars and small clubs, $50 per show, $100 if he was lucky, but he kept getting arrested. Probation violations, drug possession, back to jail, then out. Then back in dot the world saw an aspiring rapper. The truth was different. He was a man still trapped in addiction, still haunted by the streets, still unable to escape the cycle that had defined his entire life. In 2011, he was arrested again. Another stint behind bars. Another promise to Bailey that this time would be different. At WASN single quotes T. Then came 2016. Jelly Roll, 31, collaborated with fellow rapper Struggle Jennings on Waylon and Willie, a project that blended country and hip-hop in ways that felt authentic to their southern roots. The project gained traction, hundreds of thousands of streams, a growing fan base of people who related to the pain in the lyrics, but he was still broke, still struggling, still fighting demons. By 2019, he'd been arrested over 40 times in his life. Most people would have given up. Jelly Roll did in single quotes T. 2020. The pandemic shut down the world. But for Jelly Roll, 35, it became a moment of reckoning. He couldn't tour, couldn't perform, couldn't run from himself anymore. He sat in his house in Nashville and made a decision: either commit to music fully, or accept that he'd die the way most of his childhood friends had died, addicted, incarcerated, or in the ground. He got sober, truly sober, for the first time in his adult life. He started therapy, started processing the trauma of growing up in Antioch, of watching friends die, of missing his daughter's childhood. And he started writing music that was different. Not just street anthems, but confessions, vulnerability, pain turned into art. 2020 brought Save Me, a single that crossed over from hip-hop to country to rock. It was raw, honest, a man begging for salvation. The song went viral. Millions of streams, tens of millions of views on YouTube. Radio stations started playing Jelly Roll, stations that had never touched his underground rap. Then came 2021, Dead Man Walking released, a country rock ballad about living with the weight of your past, about trying to be better when everyone expects you to fail. The song charted top 40 on country AIRPLAY. Jelly Roll, 36, was suddenly on the radar of mainstream country music. But just as success arrived, tragedy struck. 2021, one of Jelly Roll's closest friends from the streets, a man who'd been with him through arrests, addiction, and years of struggle, overdosed. Fentanyl, the drug that was killing people across America by the thousands. Jelly Roll got the call in the middle of the night, rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He stood in that hospital room, sober for the first time, and realized something heartbreaking. He'd survived, but so many hadn't. The guilt was unbearable. "Why am I still here?" he asked in a 2020 interview, tears streaming down his face. "Why did I make it when they didn't? I sold the same drugs. I lived the same life. What makes me different?" Survivor's guilt became a theme in his music. Songs like Son of a Sinner weren't celebrations of redemption. They were confessions from a man who couldn't escape the weight of the past. He started visiting prisons, talking to inmates, telling them his story. Not as inspiration porn, but as truth. "I got lucky. I had a talent that gave me a way out. Most people don't. The system is designed to keep you trapped." 2022, Jelly Roll, 37, released Son of a Sinner. The song became a country music phenomenon. It reached #1 on country airplay. It was nominated for awards. It was played in stadiums and dive bars alike. He performed at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, the most sacred stage in country music. A former drug dealer, a convicted felon, standing where Hank Williams and Patsy Cline once stood, he wept on stage. 2023 brought Whitsitt Chapel, his first major label album. It debuted at #3 on the Billboard 200, selling over 80,000 units in its first week. He won the CMT Music Award for Male Video of the Year. He toured arenas, 10,000-person venues. Fans who'd never heard of him 2 years earlier were singing every word. His net worth climbed to an estimated $6 million by 2024. But the world saw triumph. The truth was more complicated. Because success brought new pain. Jelly Roll had to watch old friends from Antioch, people still trapped in addiction, still cycling through prisons, reach out asking for money, for help, for a way out he couldn't provide. I can't save everyone, he admitted. And that kills me every single day. At 41, Jelly Roll is one of the biggest names in country music. His 2024 tour sold out arenas across North America. He collaborated with Eminem, Lil Wayne, and MGK while maintaining his country credibility. He's married to Bunny XO Bunny Defford, a podcast host and entrepreneur who's been with him through the transformation. They live in Nashville, where he's now raising his daughter Bailey, now 16, and his son Noah. He's sober, actively in therapy, using his platform to advocate for criminal justice reform, addiction recovery, and mental health awareness. He's donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to addiction treatment programs in Tennessee. But he still struggles. He still has nightmares about prison, still mourns friends who didn't make it, still battles the guilt of survivor's remorse. Recovery isn't a destination, he said in 2024. It's a daily fight. Some days I win. Some days I barely survive. He performs Save Me at every concert, not because it's his biggest hit, but because it reminds him where he came from and how easily he could go back. At 41, Jelly Roll stands as proof that your past doesn't have to be your prison. From Antioch to arenas worldwide, from Davidson County Jail to the Grand Ole Opry, from losing everything to finding redemption in the very pain that almost destroyed him. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Jelly Roll's music reminded you that second chances exist, not because they're given, but because they're fought for every single day, with every choice to be better than who you were yesterday.